Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we are making Slate coasters. I haven't really worked with Slate coasters very much. I just started by putting this blue tape on top of my honeycomb and lining the Slate coaster up to be straight. As I have never successfully made a good coaster, I just did one to test it out to see how well it worked. And I'm using my 5mm spacing for engraving. So as you can see, these Slate coasters are 4 by 4 inches, but you can see on the sides that they are chipped off for the look. A lot of people who engrave coasters do 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. I actually went to do 3.25 by 3.25 only because some of my chips were a lot bigger than others. So here we are just testing our first design. So that seemed to work out. So let's make a template for 4 of them. Here we are heading over to cut 2D. So here we have the squares. I have 4 of them. I sell my coasters as a set of 4. So if you are going to be doing a lot of coasters, you can obviously just double this and continue going until you have as many as you need. My squares on the screen are 4 by 4 because that's how big my coasters are. And then I'm going to be putting a square over all the other squares because that is what I need to have cut out. Once that is how I like it, I export that as an SVG and throw it into Lightburn. Once in Lightburn, all I'm going to do with this template is cut it. I'm not going to do anything fancy with it. I'm not going to score it. We're just going to cut it. So I grabbed some of my scrap cardboard that just happened to fit and used my hold down pins to make it as flat as I could. I'm using a 5mm spacing between the cardboard and the laser. And I always trace out my design first to make sure that they will not hit the pins. Now we're cutting out our template. I did not want it to move while I was printing, so I taped down the sides, and I did end up taping down the horizontal line a little bit because it did bump out a little bit. So the Slate coasters fit in there with just a tiny little bit of wiggle room. Obviously, just because they are 4 by 4 doesn't mean they are all exactly 4 by 4. When selecting the Slate coasters to put in the template, I did pick 4 of them that were all approximately the same height. We're gonna head back to cut 2D and throw some coaster sayings onto the template. Like I said before, the squares inside the template are 4 by 4. You do not want your design going that far. You want it to be like 3.25 to 3.5 to make sure it doesn't print on the chips. If it does print on the chip, it's not that big of a deal, but you don't want a huge part of your design printed on it. So I'm just putting it into the program and then going in approximately 3/4 of an inch just by eye. It doesn't need to be perfect. Okay, we're saving that, exporting it to SVG, and opening up Lightburn again. Now, a lot of people do coasters very differently, so do not use my numbers for your machine. I'm going to engrave all the coaster sayings and turn all the lines that I have on there to be black. When I'm using my Slate coaster settings, black does not show up. In order for these to look good, I typically fill in all the spaces. I do not use line. And you'll see that I do have 2 colors on there. I just click the output off and then it will not print those lines. So I have all the lines that I'm not going to be printing in black and all the lines that I will be printing in pink. And these are so easy to finish. All you have to do is just wipe them off with a microfiber cloth.
You enjoyed.
So if you enjoyed, tell your friends about
The Laser Kings.